the limb cracks. And then they go to the next limb and big self-sabotage. Anxiety, big one. It's a negative emotion, but it's a negative emotion meant to deal with the negative emotions that someone else is to blame. And get caught in retaliation and retribution and resentment. It's a complex field. Here's a little chart put together by this Dr. David Hawkins, where he's the chart of low consciousness, higher consciousness, and emotions. I find it interesting that shame and guilt is at the very bottom of this pyramid, more so than fear. It's a darker emotion, more so than fear. Fear can be very gripping. Shame and guilt is darker. And the bottom of the pyramid, and then it goes up. Courage, willing, reason, love, peace, joy. This is his study. And, it's indicating with color picture, color coded, but it's modes of nature. Anyone not familiar with the modes of nature topic from Bhagavad Gita? You're all familiar. Three primary colors, yellow, red, and blue. You mix them, you can make any color. So the three modes of nature and different mixtures make for different emotions. Emotion is a barometer of the modes of nature that are influencing you at a particular time, and it changes over time. And the lighter color is depicted up here. Way up at the very top is enlightenment. I find it very interesting. Gratitude, in his chart at least, is above. It's a positive feeling that's above the feeling or emotion of love. Interesting. Anyway, low vibration, high vibration, high vibration. So that's scale of consciousness, and everyone has some experience of the positive emotion, like when you purposefully do some kindness for someone, you feel something. They feel something, but you feel something. Joy. There's a mode of goodness, characteristic of being honest, and when you just stick by honesty, regardless of whatever the impact may be, you tactfully, of course, but gracefully, but be honest. And helping others, doing some service that's meant for just an act of kindness to a friend or someone. Forgiveness, big one. There's a contentment that comes from genuine, not just like cosmetically, but genuinely forgiving and letting it go. And what the other person feels, or asking for forgiveness. Just something on the personal side. Something that happened in my life maybe 35 years ago. It was just a bump in the road, a younger fellow, somebody else. But they felt hurt because I didn't do, or I did or didn't do, or something. I don't remember the details at all. But I remember there's a damaged person along the road somewhere back there. So I remembering that emotion that person was feeling, I wrote to them. And they wrote back. I asked for forgiveness for something that I can't remember the detail. I just remember that you felt really hurt by something that I did or didn't do. And they wrote back within 24 hours. Like, wow, I was really surprised to receive that letter from you. And it's long gone, so don't worry. And they didn't get into what it was that I did. They went to something else that I did that I had just completely forgotten. But when they brought it up, so we make mistakes. And it's good to acknowledge the mistakes to yourself. And if somebody else has been the damaged person on the other end, even if they don't say it's okay, don't leave it. I mean, it's. I didn't do this because I wanted to feel good. I did it because there's a consequence of offending someone. It's just karmic. It's not just bad karma. It's really, it depends. So anyway, forgiveness is a good emotion. And the person was really surprised. They said, by the way, my two daughters at the time were present when this 30 years ago thing happened. And I said, please extend my apology to them too, because they didn't understand what was going on. I don't. So forgiveness, peace. Okay, here's a little exercise, short, 2 minutes. Reflect on. You have some goals, most likely. What are your goals? And specifically, sitting here together, what's the goal for being here? And if it makes you uncomfortable to think about it, then don't think about it. But why are you here? And what repeated negative emotions do you experience? What positive emotions do you wish to access? And take 2 minutes and discuss. In groups of 3 are fine too, but when you're ready, go. We're going to do this a few more times, so get used to it. Where do negative emotions come from? Sitting at a computer screen, there's a computer keyboard, and there's three parts to all of this. There's the hardware, there's the software, and there's the user. And negative emotions happen in the software space, but they're often precipitated by something from the physical space. And everything depends on how you see what's happening, positive, negative, is the conscious self. On the outside, so much advancement. I was just in Kerala. 2 days ago, I was in Kerala. And life is very simple there. Really simple. Super simple. And life today is a little more complex. Modern life is all kinds of amenities, hardware improvements, more comforts and conveniences, definitely. But it hasn't led to greater happiness, and it's just internal and external. Here's a chart. This is mental disorders, clinical. It's going up, isn't it? They stopped at 2010, but I'm sure it keeps going up. CDC. We know about the CDC. COVID. So these are the people that studied this. Per 100,000, there's a lot of people in this category. Okay, virus infection. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults, 18 and older, 20%, around 20% of the population. 1 in 5 people have a clinical mental illness. That's a lot. 300 million people in the world, according to the World Health Organization, have depression. Employees at 50 of China's top companies, not picking on China, 78.9% showed signs of agitation, which isn't surprising. 59% reported anxiety, 38% haunting depression. The first time I presented this outside the USA, I was in Kunming, China. For those of you that are from India, Kunming, if you take an airplane, is the closest city. It's like a 2.5-hour flight from Kunming to Calcutta. It's very close. So it's on the other side of a mountain range. It's a very peaceful place. When I was presenting this, the person who was the organizer told me they were an executive for China Eastern Airlines, and that morning I was making this presentation to a group in China, in Kunming. One of their executive officers jumped from the building from the 7th floor and splattered on the sidewalk below. So immediately, the company made a mandate that anyone in an executive position must take a meditation process to overcome negative emotions, because they knew that it's not like a silver bullet, but it has a positive effect of helping people that are experiencing negative emotions not to get completely carried away by them. Some more statistics. 16.2 million adults in the U.S., 6.7% of the adults in the country have experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. 16.2 million. 15% of the adult population will experience depression at some point in their life. Estimated 3.2 million adolescents, 12 to 17, in the U.S. had at least one major depressive episode. That's a lot of young people. The number represented 13% of the U.S. population. Girls were more statistically prone to a major depressive episode, and it's costly per year. So they come from, there's these three: software, hardware, and the user. And how are they triggered? So the people that study this really want to know, because they don't want to spend all that money, but plus have people have that suffering. Their combination of situations, external impressions from our past experiences. Here's one from past experiences. Here's a fellow. Karana means causation. Anta karana is a causation within. When there's some trauma that one has experienced, supposing someone had a near-death experience in this life, or maybe even in a previous life, and there's some antar karana, an impression within. And so, the end of a hot summer day, they're standing by the side of a lake, and it looks like a good opportunity to get cooled down, but panic suddenly grips them because of something that's stored within. I'll share a little. I like telling stories. I didn't know I had claustrophobia until a certain time in my high school life. In America, people do this kind of thing. The whole senior class went to go visit a fort that was from some ancient time, and we were going around looking at the place, and one of the places we saw was a little prison cell where they put people that were bad. So, kids, we climbed into the prison cell, go check it out. And I was one of the first ones in, so I was at way back of that little thing. And all of a sudden, I had to get out. And it wasn't like I wasn't in control of that emotion. I had to get out. And I don't remember what I did. I'm sure I pushed some people. I'm sure I screamed a little bit, but I had to get out. And then I remembered. Until then, I didn't remember. But then I remembered when I was little. There was a time when I was little. I had an older brother. He was 9 years older than me. and boys will be boys. We would wrestle. And when we would wrestle, he would always win because he was 9 years older than me. And one of the things that he did is he put a pillow over my head as a sign that I was defeated. And it's from that I got claustrophobia. And I didn't even remember that scene until it took over. And there wasn't anything I can do about it. Antakarana. So life has, it's a bit of a maze. We walk through situations. We don't know where we're going, but we have an idea. There's happiness on the other end of that maze, and we can find happiness somehow. So we do a series of experiments. It's something like watching a television. A television is just a blank screen. And emotions are often happening within that blank screen within the mind, and you're the observer. And there's something on the screen, so you're the observer, you're the conscious self, and then there's the software. And the software shows something, there's an image. If you're detached, you can see the image and not get caught up in the emotion. But if you abandon your sense of who you are, and you identify with what's on the screen, the emotion can carry you away. This is self-realization talk, and then there's a process of furthering detachment from the mind and the emotions in the mind. This is where the art of meditation comes. Self-realization means whatever is going on the physical or the subtle mental, you're the observer of it. It's not you. But supposing you don't have that detachment, then there's a happy story in the movie, and you feel happy, and there's a what's called action movie. There's like violence all over the place, and you identify with it, or romance, or something. It's just a movie. It's just the mind and past impressions from the mind, and therefore something that might for one person be an opportunity for doing some nice service, but to another person looks like an opportunity to suffer. So, the inner screen is not transparent to outer reality. How one sees, there's a saying, one man's food is another man's poison. So how you perceive something, that perception part, it doesn't necessarily match the reality. And I'll give some examples. Circumstances can be disproportionate from or completely different from external perception. Here's an example. 1-800 suicide hotline. Trained, experienced professional sitting there taking calls. Here comes a call. A girl called the suicide hotline after a boyfriend didn't respond to her phone call one time. So she's a trained professional. She talked her way through the thing and understood there's something behind. There's one phone call doesn't get answered. And what the internal impression was, when she was little, she grew up feeling abandoned. She came from a broken home, and there was this one phone call was a fear of loneliness and abandonment. It didn't fix the problem, but it helped the person understand where that emotion was coming from, and is it proportionate to the reality of the situation, and etc., etc., etc. I don't know exactly how the conversation went. Okay, so this is another discussion session. In the past, have there been circumstances when your reactions were disproportionate to the situation? I gave one of my own, that was the claustrophobia one. And, Sometimes there's another situation, completely different than reality. Have you had a situation? The answer is yes. Have you had a situation when you went out of your way to do an act of kindness for somebody else, and they reported to you later, "Why did you do this horrible thing to me?" Could you come again? What happened? So we're here to discuss overcoming negative emotions, and this is an opportunity for you just to share and get into the practical application of what the problem is like and where it comes from. So when you're ready, you take a few minutes and discuss with one another. Yeah. Yeah. And more images. Negative emotion has this phenomena called the avalanche effect. When it starts, the negative emotion can be innocent and simple, and it can escalate and become overwhelming and deadly. Avalanches are very dangerous. Some time ago, I was visiting in Alaska, where there are lots of mountains. And I found out while visiting there, there's a procedure for doing mountain climbing in Alaska where you don't have to worry about, or reduces the opportunity for avalanche. And the idea with avalanches is there's packed snow, and then on top of the packed snow, there's some light snow. And something towards the top, the little bit of light snow tumbles down the mountain. And that little bit of light snow then gets more snow and more snow and can become an avalanche. So the procedure is they have some kind of a pellet gun. They fire the pellet gun towards the top of the mountain and wait to see what's going to happen. Is it going to dislodge some of the light snow? And if there's, they do it far enough away that they're not going to get caught in an avalanche. But if it doesn't happen, then they know it's safe to do their mountain climbing. But it's called the avalanche effect. Something the starting point can be something very small. And if one doesn't have control of the emotional side of their life, it can become bigger and obsessive and consuming and crushing. Deadly. That's this disproportionate to the reality of the thing. It's discussed in Bhagavad Gita, not in the same language, but from a thought, there's a chain. There's some emotion connected to the thought, commonly. And from that emotion connected to the thought, it can become an obsession. And with the obsession comes destructive action. So the best is you curb things at the thought level. So it's the movie screen. You're the observer, you're not the screen. And the actions in the screen. The solution to negative emotions is self-realization. To know who you are and to know who you aren't. And you go through the circumstances of life purposefully, but also with a degree of detachment. Because more important than the movie is the self, the observer. And self-realization, processes of self-realization help enormously in dealing with negative emotions. So here's a fellow walking along carrying what looks like a burden. He's not just carrying a burden, he looks down. And is there some internal impression that we're carrying? This language is being used purposely. It's on the subtle level. It's an internal mind level impression that is creating the emotion and your experience of the situation. Similar to the television screen is this one. There's a mirror, and here's somebody looking at themselves in the mirror. And Sankhya Yoga, or Sankhya philosophy from Bhagavad Gita, is making this distinction between matter and spirit. And the mirror is the matter side, the observer is the spirit side. So make a distinction between the mind and the self. When you have a thought, this is before the emotional level, but a thought, and then following the thought some emotion, you can redirect if you become strong internally, spiritually strong internally, you can redirect the thought. Practical example is something like this. Maybe you've had the experience. There's a source of water coming from a sink or a tap or something, and it starts to go in a direction that you don't want it to go. It's really simple. You make a movement with your hand in the flow of the water and redirect it instead of that direction to this direction. And the water will start to go in this direction. It can happen on the subtle level where the thought and the emotion connected with thought can be redirected. And here's a nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. Some of you like Bhagavad Gita. Yato hi api kaunteya purushasya vipashyata. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, indriyani paranyahar. This line. Paramati mihi. They forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So part of the process of the art of meditation, overcoming negative emotions, is to have some purity inside. And what does purity mean? It's in simple language, it's to know who you are. And to know who you are requires also knowing who you're not. That's a Sankhya. So they're the spirit part of the self. There's the mind, that's not who we are. And there's the senses, and that's not who we are either. But the senses desiring some happiness, and the impression that desire for happiness has upon the mind, can carry even the thoughtful person away. So we need purity. Wow. A teenager did this for me. This is a scene that shows some doors, looks like a temple. Doors open, and then another set of doors open, and another set of doors open, and it takes you to another place, to the place where the self resides. So, body is the first set of doors, and then mind, and then heart, and then the nature of the self. I hope it works. Doesn't always work. Okay, there's the physical body. This is alignment with who we really are. Pass through this gate, the mind, the next gate, the heart, or, deeply meaningful circumstances. And purity means, a simple way of defining it, acting from the soul. Now, then that means you have to know what the soul is and how to get there and how to act from that place. That's the art of meditation. Or it's in one sense, it's the lesson of Bhagavad Gita. So there's a higher reality, and we belong to that higher reality. No, we live our lives in the world of senses and relationships and the mind, and we navigate our way through that part of life. But there's a deeper existence within each one of us, and give it a different name: spirituality, or self-realization, or a lifestyle that fosters dealing with the realities of circumstances, and we have an expectation for happiness, and then it rains. Or something else happens, and something else happens. And it's not much of life, if there isn't a spiritual core, is trying to adjust things so it comes out nice instead of not nice. And it's endless. There's no end to it. And the negative emotions that go with it didn't work out. We had a good plan. We worked on it for some period of time, and then something changed, and then just this morning, just sharing with you, I was on a Zoom call with family members of a sister who committed suicide. And the reason for the committing of suicide, this is like a real modern event. They're from Hyderabad. Something in a family situation, and the in-laws It became so oppressive, and there was no, she felt no support, and it got to the point where she couldn't carry on anymore and committed suicide. And now there's, in the wake of that, she had a 13-year-old daughter. And now what about the 13-year-old daughter, and what about the grandmother? Who, all this negative emotion stuff. It happens, even with really good people, really good people. So the back to this slide. There's a deeper existence. There's a higher reality. This just on a personal level, sharing, because I'm doing a fair amount of that. I'm trying to overcome jet lag as I'm standing here. To be honest, once upon a time I was a college kid. It seemed like a few lifetimes ago, and I had this sense that there's a higher reality besides stuff. I mean, there's stuff, and I'm part of dealing with stuff. I'm a college kid dealing with stuff, but there's a higher reality. So I reached this stage where there were three things. There is a higher reality. I know that I don't know what it is, and I want to know what it is. That's all. And then came a million questions. And then so many options, then I had to sort through those options of what do I connect well with? What is that deeper reality? What helps me get there? I'm hopefully some of you are, or all of you are in that space. Not that it means dropping out of, life and doing another something, become a monk and just do that and forget the rest of life. It doesn't mean that at all. Doesn't mean that at all. It may mean that for some persons, but what's this deeper reality? And as much as you can connect with this deeper reality, you're on your way to dealing with negative emotions because they come, and then being in a position of clarity to help others that are going through negative emotions. Because we all have situations in life where people are, you saw the statistics, they go through it, the bumps in the road, or the avalanche. They're feeling overwhelmed. The soul's designation, this is from Bhagavad Gita, commentary. The soul's designation, the mind is the cause of all tribulations in the material world. As long as this fact is unknown to the conditioned living entity, he has to accept the miserable conditions of the material body and wander within this universe in different positions. Because the mind is affected by disease, lamentation, illusion, attachment, greed, and enmity, it creates bondage and a false sense of intimacy within this material world, like, that's me. And it looks like unhappiness, and so I'm feeling that negative emotion. And that's the mind. But there's this connection. The body, the mind, the heart, the deepest place of the sense of identity and meaningfulness in life. This is Bhagavatam, it's not Bhagavad Gita, it's a Bhagavatam purport. So that's where we are. Elevate through sacred sound meditation, get in touch with your soul. Doesn't work just by thinking about it, it's a state of being. So this leads to, we're calling it the path of purity. It's the topic in the front here. There's some mantra meditation beads. I've been chanting on mantra meditation beads for a good number of years now. And It's helpful. Can't claim too many things, but I can say affirmatively it's very helpful. And the closer you can get to that deeper sense of reality that you're part of, then the circumstances, this message is being used, the internal impressions, you can see what they are, but they don't have to control your life. Now, I think if I got in a claustrophobic situation, that claustrophobia would still be there. But at least I know where it's coming from. And it's not me. And what, I don't know if any of you have those kinds of intense parasympathetic nervous system reactions in your life, but you certainly have sympathetic, and you can decide, make choices based upon, a deeper understanding of who you are. And that's this message here. And the message is how mantra meditation helps. Here's a message from the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, companion to Bhagavad Gita. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic sounds, the feeling for loving devotional service to the Supreme sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So sound meditation is a very important type of meditation. Here's the very nice place. This happens to be Govardhan Hill in Vrindavan, and the Hare Krishna mantra. Part 1. So let's see if there's some discussion. You've been very patient. Anyone here already performing some type of sound meditation or mantra meditation besides me? Oh, good. Okay. Maybe next time you come, you're going to do some yoga classes out here from time to time. Engage them in, along with the yoga, mantra yoga. Because without going into it, Hatha yoga has some benefits, important benefits, stabilizing, centering benefits. And it goes very nicely. It's meant to go very nicely with sound, mantra meditation. So when you do your yoga and some mantra meditation, it's another level, a boost. And supposing you're not the kind of person that personally undergoes extreme negative emotions, you probably have relationships with people that do. And you can be a ballast for them. Plus, sometimes for each of us, it gets a little more difficult than other times. So you have some ballast. You have some core. Keeps you not tipping over. Comments or questions? And if not, we'll close up. I'm asking anyone for questions. I'm looking at you because I thought you might have a question. Not really.
Channeling emotional outbursts and more positive way. Are you chanting Hare Krishna? Is that, would that, the intention is to clear your mind?
Yep. That's the meaning of mantra. Man refers to the mind, And tra is come from the root triate dhatu. It means to release the mind from stuff. And when you release the mind from stuff, then you open the mind to perceiving who you really are. Through sound. Releasing the mind from stuff, the identification with and attachment to stuff, that which you aren't. Letting that go, and if you let that go, then what's left is who you are. You don't become nothing. You become, at least potentially, more aware of who you really are. Through sound. Mantra, and there's this very powerful spiritual sound. It's Maha Mantra. It's a special one. Okay. So you're our president. You want to wrap up? No? Okay. Thank you all for coming. Here, you want to say something?
Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you very much, Maharaj. He just landed from India yesterday evening, and so that's why he was dealing with a little jet lag and decided to, despite the jet lag, spend some time with all of us. So very grateful for that. We're going to have dinner next. So next door we have, my wife cooked up a storm, and there's rice and beans and vegetables and dessert. So please stay for that. For those who are interested in further events like this, my wife and I come here from time to time to do yoga and mantra meditation and Gita discussions. So we have a QR code on my laptop here if you'd like to scan that and sign up for receiving information. You can do that. It's right here. Oops. Not anymore, huh? Okay, there you go. Yeah, and that's it. Thanks for coming out today and being part of the ISA Bhakti Yoga Combined